Good evening and welcome to State of Business on Art Television. I'm Tamiru Nimsal. Let's have a look at the headlines. Cabinet notes the construction of solar power plants with a combined capacity of 9 megawatts. Upcoming elections might slow down the ongoing reform efforts. World Bank cautions. News in detail. The Cabinet of Ministers has approved contracts for the construction and operation of solar photovoltaic power plants with a combined capacity of 9 megawatts. This announcement was made by the Cabinet spokesperson and Minister Bandula Gunawardena at the post-Cabinet media briefing recently.
This decision comes following a previous Cabinet approval in May 2023, where proposals were invited for the establishment of 7 megawatts of solar photovoltaic power plants. After thorough evaluation by a negotiation committee appointed by the Cabinet, 4 project proponents were identified as successful. Additionally, based on recommendations from the Procurement Appellate Board, another investor's proposal for a 5 megawatt solar photovoltaic power plant was evaluated and found suitable for implementation. The proposal presented by Power and Energy Minister Kanchana Wijesekara received the green light from the Cabinet of Ministers during their session on Monday. With these solar photovoltaic power plants set to be operational, Sri Lanka takes another step towards achieving its renewable energy targets and contributing to global efforts against climate change.
World Bank economist Francis Carlisle said that in order for South Asia to adapt to climate changes and to mitigate the shocks that arise from it, private sector investments are key, since the governments don't have the fiscal capacity to do so. The World Bank economist said this speaking at a press conference held in Colombo earlier this week.
Climate adaptation is a priority for South Asia, but who will do it? Governments are severely constrained, fiscally constrained. Fiscal positions are weak. Government debt is the highest of any emerging market and developing economy region. The borrowing costs are above average. Revenue ratios are well below average. So governments are severely constrained in what they can do, which means that climate adaptation will fall on the private sector. It'll fall on households, firms, and farmers. How do households, firms, and farmers adapt to climate change? To get a sense of that, we reviewed every study we could find, the whole economic literature we could find, and you can see the literature distilled in the chart in the center and the chart on the right. The literature has looked at all sorts of outcomes: income losses, mortality, education losses, productivity losses, harvest losses. So there are all sorts of outcomes. We collapsed them, or we streamlined them into one measure, the adaptation ratio. It measures how much of a climate damage can be offset by some adaptation strategy. Turns out that firms are actually not so bad at adapting to climate change. They can offset, you can see in a chart in the center, about 3/4 of the climate damage. The reason is that they have access to technologies. They have access to finance, they have access to technologies, so for them it's not so difficult to adapt to climate change. Who's really bad at climate adaptation are households and farmers. They can only offset about 1/3 to half of climate shocks.
Speaking at the event, World Bank senior country economist for the Maldives and Sri Lanka, Richard Walker, cautioned that the economic progress momentum might be lost due to a possible slowdown in the reforms efforts as the island nations gears up for election this year. He also noted that high poverty and vulnerability continues to persist despite the economic recovery, saying that households are increasingly taking debt to meet day-to-day requirements.
2 risks I really want to emphasize. The first one is around the elections this year and the potential we see, or the concern we see, around policy reversal or policy fatigue, particularly around the reforms that have been implemented. And the other one is obviously a prolonged and insufficiently, say, deep debt restructuring, which would be a significant drag on the economy. The other concern we have is sort of this continued and lasting impact of the crisis on the poor. Which brings me to the second message, that high poverty, inequality, and vulnerability persist despite these macroeconomic gains. So poverty has now increased for the 4th consecutive year, from about 11% in 2019 to about 26% last year. This is under the lower middle income poverty threshold. You see labor force participation in particularly urban areas continues to worsen, and this fits quite nicely with what Francisco was saying about participation rates in the labor force in South Asia. dipping from over 50% in 2019 down to about under 45%. Also concerning is households are taking on more debt, even just to meet daily food requirements. So you'll see there, this chart shows the reasons for why households are taking on debt. At the bottom there, you'll see meet daily food requirements. This is almost 23% of households that were surveyed are having to take on debt to meet these requirements.
Stay tuned. We will return after this short commercial break. Welcome back after the break. In a bid to bolster its fleet, Sri Lankan Airlines, currently up for sale, will acquire 4 A330 widebody aircraft from Ireland-based Oryx Aviation and Iago Capital Limited. The decision, based on recommendations from the Technical Evaluation Committee and the Standing Procurement Committee, was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers earlier this week.
According to Cabinet co-spokesman Bandula Gunawardena, the approved contracts entail leasing 2 aircraft from Oryx Aviation and 2 from Iago Capital. Oryx Aviation will provide 2 aircrafts for a monthly lease of $360,000 each for 6 years, while Iago Capital will lease 2 aircrafts for a monthly fee of $365 each over 8 years. These acquisitions align with the ongoing fleet expansion efforts of Sri Lankan Airlines, which currently operates 17 aircrafts with 3 grounded. Gunawardena justified the decision to lease aircrafts, emphasizing the complexity of selling Sri Lankan Airlines and the need for a viable deal for both the government and the investors. The minister said that leasing aircrafts allows the airline to maintain operations while negotiations continue for its sale.
Port, Shipping and Aviation Minister Nimal Siripal Silva verifies that out of the 57 containers on board, only 1 container was destined for Colombo. Addressing misinformation circulating in the media, the subject minister highlighted that the vessel's final destination was China and not Sri Lanka.
The Singapore flag container ship Dali collided with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore on 26 March. The initial news said that the cargo ship, measuring 984 feet in length, was en route to Colombo, Sri Lanka. Port, Shipping and Aviation Minister Nimal Siripal Silva says that he has inquired from the Maersk shipping line and received all the official information about the ship with some controversial containers. The minister said that according to the information he was provided, there had been 57 containers with toxic materials that can be categorized under the International Maritime Dangerous Goods Code, and only 1 box was bound for Colombo and the rest were for re-exports. The minister also underscored the necessity of handling classified goods such as flammables and hazardous materials in international trade and logistics. He further added that goods falling under classifications 1 to 9 require special approval from the Ministry of Defence, and the contents should also be declared to the arriving port before 72 hours. However, the minister admitted that they still do not know what exactly was in that container bound for Colombo.
The Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau officials from the Special Investigation Unit have apprehended a woman accused of swindling over 7 million rupees from individuals across the island under false pretenses of securing jobs in Romania. The suspect, who operates a licensed foreign employment agency, allegedly promised employment opportunities in Romania to numerous individuals, charging exorbitant fees in the process.
Upon receiving complaints from 88 victims, the Bureau launched an investigation uncovering the extensive fraud totaling over 7 crore rupees. The Bureau is now focused on apprehending the manager of the employment agency and another individual believed to be involved in the scam. Following her arrest, the suspect was presented before the Maligakanda Magistrates Court and remanded until April 8th. The investigative team, led by Kapila Karunaratna and comprised of officers Indunil Pushpakumara, Ravindra Ambepala, Mahesha Kodipiliarachi, Amila Pereira and Gayasha Subhashini, executed the arrest. The Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau urges aspiring foreign job seekers to verify the legitimacy of employment agencies through their website or hotline before entrusting them with money or personal documents.
Stay tuned for the stock update. Trading at Club Stock Exchange ended on positive notes today. The All Share Price Index gained 73.59 points to close at 11,698.49 and the S&P SL20 gained 44.04 points to close at 3,437.32. The turnover was 3.1 billion rupees and over 73 million shares were traded. Up next are forex rates. That's all our news for today. For this and more, subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. Take care and good night.